Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Webinar Wednesday. My name is Kieran Greening, a safety advisor. I will be the host of this little presentation and discussion. Today we're going to talk about NCSO exam preparation, some of the details on why NCSOs are important, what the designation means, how it can help you start a career in safety, and some other things that we'll find out along the way. So I just want to get started with a quick round of introductions. I just did myself, so we'll start with Rick.
Hi everyone, my name is Rick Rieger. I'm the Senior Safety Advisor based out of Regina.
Excellent.
Hey. I'm Justin, Safety Advisor out of Regina. I also work with the Yorkton and Esterhazy regions.
Hi, I'm Lori Sins, Program Administrator at the SCSA, and the Programs Department covers CORE, C-Corps, NCSO, and HSA programs.
Perfect. So with that round of introductions, we'll kind of jump straight into a little discussion here. So I just wanted to kind of get to the point of why NCSOs are out there, why this designation was developed, who it really helps, and how you can go about getting it. So to start off, I think an NCSO is important to any company that is looking to implement a safety program in any sort. So we take a look at an NCSO's duties, and it can be to create, implement, and enforce a safety program. So when you take a look at all the details of the jobs they do, it's a very cross-functional job. So a lot of companies with these people at the helm have had a lot of success implementing safety programs where potentially companies without them have not found time with key positions or with people in different wearing different hats. So do you guys have anything to add where NCSO can help, how an NCSO has helped you develop your career? Hate to be the interviewer, but I guess that's kind of my position today.
Yeah, with the NCSO, I come from a big construction background as a worker and supervisor. There, you're constantly on site and you're constantly involved in safety. But what NCSO can help do is just give you those tools in your tool bag to help kind of further that education side. I mean, as a supervisor, especially when you take some and even entry-level supervisory courses, you start to kind of realize how important safety is, but you just don't have that fully well-rounded palette to take from when it comes to safety. So what the NCSO really does help is just completely round you out as a safety professional, for me at least.
Absolutely. And when you take a look at what you were talking about as well, you don't have to just be a safety professional with this designation. If you're a supervisor and you really want to understand what your legislative duties are, how you can improve as a supervisor, a lot of the courses designed for the NCSO also fit the description of someone who's in a supervision role. There are a lot of duties and implications the law has with due diligence on supervisors in Saskatchewan. So it could be an important role even for someone who's not 100% going to be just in safety.
Yeah, I was going to mention too that the nice part about the program is that it's quite structured and organized as far as what courses you need to take. I know there's some variants, and I'm sure we'll get into this with what is compulsory or mandatory and what are electives. But people that could be in the field, like Justin was talking about there, they may have a good idea of what their company does and how they do it, but they might not be getting the overall view and maybe a better understanding of where this comes from, what is the need, what is some of the background, and what is the context as to why are we doing or why do we need to do some of the things that we need to do as far as like what you said, Kieran, as far as due diligence. So it's an opportunity for people to take that and to take those courses and get a better understanding, some background, and then also have the ability or opportunity to talk with other professionals or other people within the industry. And there's a lot of good discussions in our classrooms, even now with them being done remotely. We do it where there's a live instructor, and there's opportunity for people that are taking the courses to have that discussion. You can bounce ideas off one another. You can get feedback. You can ask them for their opinion, and it just gives you a little bit of that social network and peers to bounce some ideas from and get some good feedback and good discussion going in those courses.
Yeah, for sure. And what's really interesting is how the NCSO designation has developed over the years. Anytime as a younger person, when I first got into the construction industry and first thought about taking safety up as a profession, I looked at these courses first, because all the jobs potentially had, do you have an NCSO, HSA, or CRSP designation? Now, the HSA is a more entry-level version for people without construction experience firsthand, or are developing that construction experience. And the NCSO is a really good segue into developing more as a safety professional. So I find it really interesting that it's linked with the jobs, because in my early career, I was just, I had the HSA designation, and that's where I landed my first safety job. So as that's developed, and I'm a newly certified NCSO, so it feels pretty good. With that being said, we'll jump straight into this presentation. So with this presentation, it's designed for people who are just at that stage to take the examination. So if you're ready for the exam and you're wondering, what should I be doing? How should I study? What should I look at? We'll kind of delve into some of those topics and hopefully get some knowledge base from some of the professionals on this webinar today, and we'll talk more as it goes along. So to start the presentation, I'm going to share my screen here on my cell phone, which is kind of interesting technology development. All right, apologize for some of those technical looking difficulties there, but we'll just jump straight into it. So, like I said, watching this webinar means you're on your way or thinking about completing all the required or mandatory training programs met for the NCSO program. And potentially you're ready to test your knowledge on health and safety in the construction industry. So as we talked about, the National Construction Safety Officer Program is a certification program in health and safety within the construction industry specifically. So it combines formal training with an individual's field experience. And as well, the National Construction Safety Officer designation has reciprocity across Canada in specific provinces, and it meets the standard requirements and verifies that a person has met the training, practical application, years of experience, and written performance measures set out by the Canadian Federation of Construction Safety Associations. So if you were to move to BC or a different province across Canada, you can check and see if the CSO designation crosses over there. And there might be some small amendments you have to take, but largely you'll have your certification there as well. So we kind of talked about the role of an NCSO. So like we said earlier, a company who hires an NCSO is a company usually that's either implementing, creating, or managing a safety program, or all three of those things. With any safety program, there's continuous improvement over the years. And if there isn't, potentially it's not functioning properly. So some of the major duties that an NCSO can fulfill is like conducting workplace training, training supervisors how to conduct assessments, hazard assessments, inspections, toolbox meetings. It might be auditors auditing the company against different benchmarks set out, just like the core program that we have, the C Corp program as well, or if it's something else in a different industry. So these people are also trained as investigators. They can assist management with that, investigate near misses, create documents, So any sort of health and safety related concern, an NCSO will be able to assist. So we'll just jump right into the preparation for the exam. So if you are on our website under the resources tab, or pardon me, under the NCSO tab, there is a preparation guide. So largely this presentation is based off of that guide, just bringing to life some of the really key points that might not get missed, but require a little bit more attention. So we're going to go over the document, and then you're going to find out what to expect when you take the exam. So the purpose of the guide, it's a tool that's going to help you organize the information you need to review for the exams here. So it's going to assist with identification of resource materials, prioritizing the importance of each resource, reviewing each resource in an organized manner. In the guide, it shows you how to locate these ideas, how to find and apply supporting evidence, key information, examples. This will help you understand how the exam is structured. It'll explain the type of questions that are going to be asked in a small way. We're not going to give away any answers, but we'll help you understand just how they're written. So just a disclaimer here, the presentation here and the guide are only going to fulfill its intended purpose if you commit to spending time and energy studying for this exam. So if you don't follow some of the recommendations for studying and this is your only resource, it's a good chance that this might not help. So this is designed to make how you study more effective and does not contain enough information to alone get you through the exam. So I'm just going to talk about the exam structure here. So exams are created with the objective of confirming transfer of knowledge between the resource and the student. So the purpose of the NCSO exam is to demonstrate your knowledge of occupational health and safety within that construction industry that we've been talking about. So notably, there's going to be some different style of questions asked on this exam. So it focuses on 11 different topics using three different types of questioning formats. So long answer, short answer, multiple choice. Most of us are familiar with multiple choice. It's A, B, C, or D. Short answer and long answer are a little bit more complicated, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So there's 100 possible percent. 30% of it's going to be multiple choice questions, 30% short answer, and 40% is assigned to long answer responses. Obviously, the highest score you can achieve is 100%. So when we take a look at a multiple choice question, this is an example of one. So even though there might be two or more answers that potentially could be the right answer, we want to find the best and clearest plausible answer, which does not require explanation. It may also include true or false questions in the multiple choice. So when we take a look at a short answer question, so this one here is, what is a job hazard analysis? And it says that a JHA is a careful analysis of the potential hazards associated with a specific task. And then it goes on to say the JHA breaks down the task into separate steps and yada, yada, yada. So here, the note that the answer is short, but it gets to the point quickly. These questions are worded to ask for specific information, which can be paraphrased, point form, or a list type response. And often these short answer questions ask for definitions, functions, causes, descriptions of items, equipment lists, fill in the blanks, and some other really popular short answer topics or styles, pardon me. So a long answer question, didn't have enough room on the slide to put a long answer question, didn't want to bore you with all those words. So just pretty much tells you what might be on the test. So you might be provided with a worksite with a picture to describe unsafe conditions, and then you're going to be asked to identify and document, and then control and prioritize the hazard. So that's an example of one that may be on the exam. So these written response questions vary on the exams. I believe there are 2 different exams to ensure that people don't know the answers off of one. The typical format includes case studies, seek and find, identifying errors, creating a procedure or a practice, a plan or a training session. So similar to short answer, they provide an opportunity to demonstrate your understanding of construction safety. And the concepts usually use explanations to support your answers. So topics covered on the national exam include health and safety programs, hazard assessment, risk assessment / hierarchy of controls, training orientations, inspections, investigations, audits, documentation, emergency preparedness, adopted standards, WHMIS, and the criminal code. Note that the criminal code is more likely playing a small part in the exam. So you should be prepared to explain and list elements and answer questions on the process or the role of an NCSO, describe the core standard, what core is about, the processes regarding hazards, risks, hazard controls, worksite inspections, investigations, regulatory requirements such as how to prepare for an emergency, WHMIS, and other jurisdictional specific items. The responsibility for a safety management system as it pertains to owners, managers, supervisors, and all the way down to workers. It'll talk about the definition of due diligence potentially. You're going to want to know what that means, how due diligence is executed, how you can protect yourself within that sense, how auditing processes confirm a system is working, legal implications of non-compliance, anything like those. Those are key items to keep in mind during the exam and when you're studying for it, I suppose. So when we talk about exam resources, so the first resources you're going to want to look at are the contents of the Leadership for Safety Excellence courses, Safety Management, Safety Auditor, as well as WHMIS, Live on the Job Site or Train the Trainer, whichever you've taken more recently. So these resources are going to be a bulk portion of the exam, but that doesn't mean that the other resources, the other class lists, class manuals that you've received won't be a big part of your understanding. So it's good to review all of these topics, but keep in mind that these are the main ones. So other useful resources, the internet's your friend. If you can't find a specific answer that you're looking for, or you have an idea of what you're looking for, Google. Some of the things that come up first might not help you, but if you specifically look for Saskatchewan-based websites like WorkSafe Saskatchewan, or if you're looking externally across Canada, the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety is very useful. They have a lot of great information there as well. So now I'd like to have a discussion on some of the NCSOs on the panel here. How did you use course materials to study? So I'm just going to exit out of this quickly. So we'll start there.
Sure. I think, Kieran, what you said there were where you mentioned or gave some advice on focusing on the main core courses. That's where I kind of started and for the most part ended, really. I made sure that I had a good understanding of those 4 core courses.
Mm-hmm.
And we just had a bit of a short discussion before we started here. In the position that we're in here, working with the SCSA, you know, we're around safety a lot. So I didn't feel the need to dig into the other courses that much. And then as an advisor, we teach some of those courses as well. So just, it was more a matter of reviewing the core courses, having a good understanding, digging into some of the things, like even what you showed there on that one slide where it gets into some specifics like investigations. So it'd be like, okay, I'm going to review the portion or the part on investigations and leadership for safety excellence and make sure I have a really good understanding of that in case they ask any questions on that. So that's kind of how I approached it, and it seemed to work fairly well. So I don't know, Justin, if you have anything to add to that or any other ideas, or if you did it differently.
One thing that's really nice is we do have the preparation guide as well as this video, which breaks it down. One advantage that gives you is, Kieran, you kind of went over, the difference between a short answer and a long answer. Take some time to really look at some resources out there that explain the best way to get your message across and defend your answer when it comes to writing out those short and long answers. Just because sometimes, even like myself, I start getting into an explanation, even like I am right now, and I get fairly long-winded, and sometimes you can kind of drift off the point. So it's really important that you kind of focus in and remember what exactly they're asking of you. And a really good way to make sure that you hit those points is by doing a little bit of external research, like you had mentioned earlier, Kieran, into the best way to answer these short and long answer questions. As far as studying the material, yeah, you said it right there, Rick, is that we're surrounded a lot by safety. One big thing so that you don't have to, I shouldn't say that you don't have to study, but you don't have to study as much, and that puts you in a position much like we are, is that the moment you're done taking your courses and you can write the exam, don't wait. That just saves you from having to go back and relearn a lot of the material. Because there is some, it's not the same as skill fade, but it's similar that, once it's been, say, 2 years, a year and a half since you've taken an LSE class, there's some things that you tend to slip your mind. So taking that exam the moment you can is a really important part to being successful.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail right on the head there. Advice I got when I was going to write the exam was, like you said, Justin, to prepare to justify your answers, and be very specific when there is questions that say justify the answer. So if you're writing the test and it says explain this particular safety practice, explain why you would choose this, and you don't explain the answer thoroughly, or you write an acronym but don't explain the acronym, things like that can lose marks. So for sure.
I just wanted to add, if there are students, like you've mentioned, if they've taken courses quite a while ago and they don't have that course material anymore, please contact us, because we can have our training department email you PDFs of the courses that you have taken to help you study.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very good point. That was one of the things that personally I did to study for the exam. I had a previous employer that I took all my books to, and when I left, I kind of neglected to pick them up. So
We can
lucky
help
me, had to find out how to get the resources again. So that's a very good point. So in my particular, I guess in my story, I studied quite extensively for this exam. I like to be prepared for things. So what I did was take the course material and read the books almost front to back, those main course materials, and then go into them. And there are little tests throughout. So they're self-exams or something along those lines. You take those questions and you get them right, or you take a look at the answers and you get prepared to write short answer or multiple choice. So when you take a look at that, it's a really good method to study, is to test yourself at different intervals, and definitely don't cram. With my experience in the university courses I'm taking at the moment, cramming only gets you to remember the first and last thing you studied. So if you take a self-controlled pace and you look at studying throughout a week, maybe you're going to spend an hour every night and just take a quick look into those programs, into those books, because we're all busy people, right? Like at night we got kids, we have family, but just making sure to prioritize the things that are going to help you progress in your career. And one of the other key things I did is go to different safety associations and look at their guides. If you take a look at their study guides, you might get a good idea of what their questions are, what their layout is. And that's important because it is a national exam. So there are portions of different provinces' things that we have to have as reciprocity progresses. So that's just another example of a good place to look.
A piece of advice I'd like to give too is time management when you're writing the course. So I know I've talked to other people, and Justin, you mentioned that you didn't go to the limit as far as time goes. I did. I went right to the limit. I believe it's 2 hours, and it's very particular. Like you don't get any time past that end time. So as you had shown there previously, Kieran, you have your multiple choice, and you go into the short answer, and then you go into the longer one. So my strategy at the beginning was I went through the multiple choice, did those as efficiently or as quickly as I could. And then from there, where am I at with time? So it's okay. So now I kind of chunked off the rest of the exam. Where am I at? And in my mind, where should I be when I'm done the short answer? And then how much does that give me for those long answer questions? And go from there and just kind of watch the clock, watch the time, make sure I'm somewhat on track. And then also within those questions, taking a look at how many marks are for each question to kind of give me an idea. And I'm not sure if I was correct in assuming that or what, but if it's worth more marks, I then felt that I had to give more information. So kind of gauging the amount I wrote based on what the questions were worth as far as marks. So again, it took me right to the end for the most part, but at least it did give me some time where I could go back into multiple choice. And because I did that relatively quickly, kind of reread that, make sure I was comfortable with the way I answered that. And even if there was anything I felt I could add to the short answer or anything like that, it kind of gave me a little bit of leeway at the end to kind of clean things up and make sure that I was comfortable with what I had. But it took me right to the end. Like I was still kind of finishing things up with a minute or two left.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because one thing, and I can kind of laugh about it now, but I didn't take to the end. In fact, I had a considerable amount of time left over, because I'm one of those people that when I write an exam, I'm always scared I'm going to change it to the wrong answer, because I have done that in the past. So as soon as I was done, I made sure I didn't skip anything and I handed it in. But it's like I tell everyone that I've ever helped prepare for this exam, is that take your time, take right to the end, even if it's just going over things and adding little bits here and there. Because I spent the next 6 weeks with gut rot worrying about, did I do everything I could to pass that exam? Thankfully I did pass it. But, I was really worried until the time that I got it, because it's not that I rushed it, but I didn't take that full allotment of time that I was given. So that's some really good advice. Just take that time and read and reread, because there's only a certain amount of times that you can write this exam, I believe. So, you want to get it right the first time.
Yes, there are rewrite options. There is a maximum of 2 rewrites, but round 1, we would definitely recommend take the time, especially on the long answers. We're not looking for an essay type write out. You're okay to do bullet points. It'll say list 5 things and explain. So the more you can write, the more thorough those answers can be, is where you're going to get your marks.
Yeah, there's definitely some anxiety over it. So even Justin, you said you didn't take to the end, and I'm saying I did, and made sure I was comfortable with the answers. Comfortable as far as in my mind. So, that's not to say that my mind is right. So even though it did take me the whole 2 hours, it's not like I left there feeling overly confident. And like you said, the longer it took to get the results, the more self-doubt creeps in, and it's like, man, then you start looking back at some of your answers and what you wrote, and it's like, kind of missed out on this one a little bit, and I don't think I explained this one properly, and then you have some more self-doubt creep in. So until you actually get that passing mark, it's there's some anxiety for sure and some stress, and then once you get that, it's a bit of relief for sure. And a lot of people that I talk to, it's a common thing to have anxiety and stress for an exam, especially for people, that may not have written an exam and it could be years. Like we have people that go through the NCSO program that there's such a wide range of age and experience and education, and there's so many different companies and industry, and well, not industry, I guess, because it's construction, but different like variants within the jobs that they do and the companies that they work for. So we try to tell them, we try to ease their mind, but the best advice is just to prepare and make sure you're ready and do the best you can. And so many people do stress it and are anxious about it, but for the most part, if you put in the time and you review your material, you should be fine. It's nothing too crazy, too out there or anything like that. It's fairly reasonable, fairly logical. There wasn't too many surprises. Like when I did write the exams, like where would this come from, or why would this be on the exam? I didn't have anything like that or any thoughts like that. So it was pretty straightforward as far as that goes.
Yeah, if people are wondering, when we say national exam, all the Canadian Construction Federation associations have agreed with these banks of questions, and there's also the bank of the answer key. So it is scored and graded all across the provinces the same.
Excellent. So with the end of that little discussion there, we're just going to jump right back into the PowerPoint, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the course material, and then we'll get a little bit closer to finishing this up. Okay, so we're going to take just a very brief look at what the main course resources delve into as far as what you can expect when you're reviewing them. So Leadership for Safety Excellence, or LSE for short, is designed to assist supervisors in building health and safety into their everyday planning. It encourages and promotes safe environments where people can work safely and make a lasting contribution to the safety programs. So some of the very major points it goes over are the supervisor's role, what a supervisor definition is, so promoting and enforcing safety standards in the workplace, safety program elements, management, supervisory and worker responsibilities, regulatory requirements, corporate culture. So those are all some different things that supervisors do in a normal day. Some of the tasks they perform might be inspections, purposes of these inspections, conducting them, prioritizing deficiencies, following up, holding meetings about these discussions, investigations. So, and it goes over training, reasons for training, orientations on the job training, what's expected of that sort of training, conducting a safety training session, and getting the most out of your safety training. So those are just some of the topics that are gone over in the Leadership for Safety Excellence course, pardon me. And we move to safety management. So the discussions or topics discussed, pardon me, in this course provide fundamental knowledge required for the development and implementation of a health and safety program. So it'll teach you just a little bit about how we align the sections, the 13 different sections, what they are, how you can combine them with the everyday goings on of your company. So it contains information pertaining to the purpose of a health and safety program, and is going to teach an individual to identify the elements required for an effective safety program. So a safety auditor training is paramount to those who are going to be benchmarking their company against a set standard. So with the core audit standard, there are, there's an audit for all the sections of the health and safety program as outlined in the course. These safety audits are a cost-effective method of measuring your safety performance. So as we all know, safety is something that isn't exactly tangible all the time. So we have to look at how safety is performing, how workers are changing their attitudes, how our culture shifts. So this is a way of solidifying and making it so that you can quantify some of these things. So in this course, a participant will discover the role a health and safety auditor has in the management system, reasons for performing the audits, legislative and due diligence requirements. It'll examine how corporate culture affects the health and safety program, how it's built into different strategy plans, operational plans, how to carry out effective interviews, communicate the findings through a closeout meeting, and then it'll teach you how to write an executive summary report. And the other major one is WHMIS. So previous to 2019, we had a course called Train the Trainer, and then we got into WHMIS.live on the job site. Now again, we've got back into the Train the Trainer due to demand. So we'll discuss both of these courses here. So the Live on the Job Site course was designed for managers and supervisors who are responsible for conducting site-specific WHMIS activities. So it would talk about SDS sheets, the proper training, implementation of this program, storage, handling, all important things that potentially could be on the exam. So reviewing the course manual for this could be very paramount. So WHMIS Train the Trainer was designed to teach people how to teach WHMIS. So the idea being that as a cost-effective measure, you can train your own employees in WHMIS. So similarly, some of the major topics are very similar as WHMIS and doesn't change from course to course, and legislative requirements and all that fun stuff. So some of the course content is, like I've spoken about, the responsibilities, rights of workers, WHMIS 2015 legislation that is in cooperation with the globally harmonized system, employers' duties, identifying hazardous materials on sites, reviewing labels, tags, safety data sheets, employer labels, supplier labels, and site-specific training for workers and the techniques used to train them. Those are some of the topics in the course there. So this next slide is the conclusion of this little presentation here. So the preparation experience is going to be different for everybody who's going to take this exam. So if you're studying for this exam, nobody can help you but you. If you choose not to use the study guides, potentially you miss out on some good information that you might have missed. Like if Justin said, if you haven't taken the course recently, you might be missing some information that just needs a refresher. Moving on here. That's the end, and that's our logo. So if you have questions about the preparation guide, you can contact any of the advisors. We're listed on the SCSA online website. And now we'll have another round of discussion. Okay, so what I want to talk about here is some of the other things, booking the exam, how we do that now with the pending COVID situation around the planet. I want to talk about some other things about the NCSO recertification, maintenance of the courses. I guess we'll go to Lori with a couple of those questions.
Yes, certainly with things could be changing rapidly. We never know at this point. So we would recommend that the students contact us. We'll verify that their courses are all complete and that they would be at the point of registering for the exam. And right now we would be giving them a contact at Sask Poly. They can send an email to that particular one and describe which exam they want to take, select a date. It has to be at least 2 weeks in advance for selecting the date. And then a Sask Poly person would contact them directly, get them registered, and take their credit card payment over the phone. So it's going to be a one-on-one registration process with the student and Sask Poly at this point, because their testing center is closed for written exams. The person, if they're registering, is going to be taking the remote exam, is the only option at this point. So that's computer. So the student would write it on their own computer as long as they have a camera, microphone, certain specs for technology specs that they would need on their computer, then they would be good to go. And Sask Poly will give them all of that information as well when they register.
Excellent. Yes. So I guess the next topic that I wanted to touch on is the recertification. Who's responsible for keeping up with the certifications, the courses?
Yeah, it is the student's responsibility. So there are courses that are going to expire along the way. So if you initially take that exam and you pass, you're going to get an NCSO certificate dated for 3 years. So in that time frame, you may have your courses that are going to expire. So you'd have to keep those up to date. And those ones would be Auditor, WHMIS, and SCOT. As far as our compulsory courses, those 3 expire. And it would depend on which electives the person has taken. Those ones also expire as well. Most of them are 3 years, maybe a 5-year certificate. A few electives don't expire. If they took the ones that didn't expire, that's a good choice. So it is the student's responsibility to keep those courses up to date, as well as doing a maintenance audit. So when a person takes auditor, they get a certificate for a 3-year period. They need to do at least 1 audit in that time frame and to submit that to the SCSA. That has to be accepted and entered into their records. That is mandatory for NCSO. You cannot skip that. So the courses, the audit, any electives that have to be updated, you just keep us in the loop, make sure everything's up to date, and then when that certificate is going to expire, you do need to contact us before that expiry date, and we would issue a renewal for another 3 years if all your courses are up to date. If you don't renew before that expiry date and you want to keep that status, you would be looking at making sure your courses are up to date, and you'd have to write the exam again. So it's definitely something you want to keep on top of.
For sure, all things you don't want to have happen if you've already written the exam and went through the preparation once.
Yeah.
Likely not something you're gonna want to do again soon. Like Lori said, it's pretty imperative to keep up on top of those topics and make sure you've kept up with that stuff. It's not like some certifications where potentially you get it and it lasts forever. So some of the other topics of NCSO, the exam, sometimes, it's said on the study guide that if you're going to apply for the exam, that you don't go through Polytech first, that you go through the SCSA, contact us to verify that you're eligible. You potentially could have the letters if they haven't been accepted, or if something somewhere along the way hasn't 100% lined up with what's required, you might not be able to write the exam. So it's imperative that before all that starts, that you verify this information.
Yeah, correct. Even we have a lot of students that will take a lot of the courses that are part of NCSO or HSA, but for NCSO, you actually have to apply to the program and be accepted to be officially in the program. So that's step 1. We recommend that you get approved before you start taking all of the courses.
For sure. So on that note, that's really what I wanted to discuss today. I know it's a little bit less than the hour we're used to, but if we don't have any more topics on the NCSO designation or the exam, then
I can share a little bit more maybe about the rewrites. If it does happen, the passing score is 75%. If the person is unsuccessful, we would inform you that you didn't pass on that round, but there is a 90-day wait period. It is mandatory. That's a national standard. So 90-day wait period before you could rewrite. And again, we would recommend a little more studying and just write more, not less, is the famous line. And so there is option of maximum 2 rewrites. If it came to a point where you've written that test the actual 3 times and have not passed, if you wanted to continue, you would have to apply to the program again and redo the courses themselves, retake the program entirely if they got to that point.
I like, Kieran, that you mentioned on your last slide there, if anyone has any questions to contact us as advisors. It's not like we can walk them through and tell them what was on the exam, but we can ease their mind a little bit as to how it's structured. And again, just giving them that personal advice that might ease their worries a little bit and just make them feel a little bit more comfortable about the whole situation and what they're coming into. I don't know too if it's worth mentioning, Kieran, you just wrote that exam and I had some questions for you too, because when I wrote it, it was a little while ago and that was in the classroom setting. And then you did it remotely and I'm like, well, what does that look like? And you know, how do they know that you're not cheating or that you don't have someone giving you answers or anything like that? But after I talked to you, you explained the situation. It's like, okay, well, that sounds like it's pretty straightforward, and there's, you know, it's kept pretty tight where you don't have the ability to do any of that stuff. So maybe if you could kind of explain what that looks like, that might kind of help some people too.
yeah, for sure. That's a really good point, actually. I kind of missed that on my initial agenda here. So the process is pretty interesting. It looks a lot like this from their end, I would think. If I was going to cheat, potentially looking down, doing things that are out of the ordinary other than looking at your computer screen and potentially at your keyboard. So what they have is something called a lockdown browser. So I'm not sure if they watch it live. I'm pretty sure it's a computer system, so don't feel like you're being watched. And it monitors you as the test is given. So at the start, there's some security questions to make you show a picture of your identification. They'll go through that stuff. It'll take a picture of you. You'll pick up your laptop and you'll move it around, show your surrounding areas, make sure they can visually see that you don't have study aids beside you, as this is a closed book exam. And basically, other than that, you just do the test as you would on a computer, any other system. The lockdown browser disables you from being able to leave, other than if you physically left the computer, or if you left the browser, then the exam would be null and void, which is kind of interesting how technology is advanced to the point where, like Rick said, you're doing it in the classroom. Next thing you know, the only available option is online due to the current situation. So,
yeah, I agree. It's a good setup that they have. It's that lockdown browser. You can't go to the internet. You can't search anything else. There's no bathroom breaks. You can't leave that computer, or it's going to shut down on you, and that exam won't be marked as a 0.
And the other interesting thing is when you book an exam at 10 a.m. and if you, let's say, start at 10:15, you only have 2 hours. You don't have 2 hours from when you start. You have 2 hours from that 10 o'clock start time. They don't give you a second more or a second less. So it's very important to be timely and ensure that you're going to be punctual for this exam. If you have other commitments at the same time, consider rebooking either the exam or the other priority. That way you can ensure that you have the time and you're not stressed out for the exam, as that'll probably help you forget stuff.
Yeah, SAS Poly will give the student the information to set up that lockdown browser and do a test of that before the actual exam date. So they want you to have all of that set up on your system. Shouldn't be planning to do that, 10 minutes before your exam starts. that should be done in advance. And then the day of your exam, you're just logging in to take the test.
Exactly, yeah. It took me, even though I've already done the pre-test, it took me about 25 minutes to get 100% set up with everything. So with their recommendation of being half an hour early, I would definitely recommend being at your computer an hour early, having everything set up, your area cleaned up, making sure there's not things lying around that could potentially look like a study guide. A key recommendation is to keep your phone in a different room, keeps you from thinking about it. I have a smartwatch. It tells me if I receive a notification from my cell phone. So I took that off as well. Anything that could distract me, I kept away. It's just in the modern day of technology of people being able to reach you 24/7, there's a good chance that in those 2 hours, if you're working, that someone's going to try to contact you, maybe send you a text or something like that. So yeah, be prepared in all ways to be focused, on time, and ready. Yeah, I think it was a very good experience. I was really glad that the test went the way it did. You'll find that when you write the exam, wording is important. There's no trick questions. We're not out there to trick you guys. We're here just to verify knowledge on health and safety. But when you read some of the answers, make sure you read them thoroughly and you don't just quickly glance over them, because there is questions that might say, what should you not do? What should you do? And just like any exam, the math tests, any of those fun things where it says show your answer, make sure you justify it and give your reasonable response as to why you wrote it that way.
Yeah, overall, I'd say it's a good program, and it's nice seeing people achieve their goal. And even personally myself, once I got it, like I said before, a sense of relief and a sense of accomplishment, and especially with people that haven't done any formal sort of training or exams in a long time. There's a lot of build up to it. You need to put some time into it, but there's that sense of accomplishment and achievement afterwards, and you can take some pride in it. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, a lot of times too, the way the courses are timed, you have a lot of overlap where you may see the same people in the same courses a number of times. And then they start to make a connection with one another, and before you know it, they're bouncing ideas off one another. And it seems like once they're done, they still stay connected to possibly them, but especially to us. So even the other day, I got an email from someone, and one of his first comments was, I'm an NCSO, so they use that as a way to identify themselves and to kind of have a connection with us. And he just wanted some clarification on a question that came up between him and a fellow coworker. And it just kind of makes them feel like, a little bit of a sense of belonging, sense of achievement and accomplishment. And it's a good program, and one that we receive some positive feedback on, certainly.
Yeah, it's no small feat. There's no certification process like this that isn't admirable. If you take a look at all the different programs out there and certifications and the job prospects, like, this is something that can really help your career, with your growth, your personal, professional development. It can add to your toolkit as just a professional in general. If you're a manager at a safety company, a construction company, pardon me, you're likely to be somewhat involved or majorly involved in a health and safety program. Modern laws require that when we do our planning and organizing and leading and controlling, that each facet of that, from management down to the lowest level worker, has a play in that health and safety program. Now, when we look at the workers closest to the risk, which are the people in the front line, using the tools, pulling wrenches, using drills, those are the people that need the protection in the health and safety program. So as an NCSO, you can take really large amounts of pride in knowing that at the end of the day, those people are going to go home potentially with the help of your safety program that you've implemented. So there's a huge level of pride in achieving different standards. Even if you don't go for the core standard, but you do have a safety program, it's really worthwhile to have a deeper knowledge base on health and safety. So as a health and safety professional, it's not just keeping people in line. It's not just keeping people following the rules. It's building a culture of respect, mutual agreement that health and safety is imperative on the work sites. And once you build that and get that instilled in people's minds, you are in effect going above and beyond what you thought you could do otherwise. For me personally, becoming a safety professional and helping the company was really clear to my my personal goals in any profession that I would like as I wouldn't call myself a humanitarian, but I really do like the idea of helping people out, especially with the endeavors I've went through in life, to help the little guy, make sure that everyone's going to go home at the end of the day, because loss is unnecessary if it happens at work. Part of being an NCSO is protecting life and protecting company assets. And if you can make a living helping people out, why not get it going? But it's 1 o'clock. We took a little bit further with some of that NCSO talk. I want to thank the panelists. Thanks, Lori, Rick, and Justin for being here today. Like I said, if you need to contact a safety advisor, have questions about the NCSO program, have questions about the core program, reach out to any of the advisory staff, and we can put you in line with the right people if it's not us. On our website. And then that's all we have today. Thanks so much for watching, and catch our next one next Tuesday. And we'll also have a webinar on Wednesday again as well.